Thanks for joining me today for this practice on reclaiming our beginner's mind. When we have gone through a major life event like loss and we are struggling to find our bearings, one opportunity we have to help recover ourselves and some semblance of purpose and meaning is to use this time to realize that we may need to rethink everything, right? Everything about ourselves and our lives, and treating everything that we do with a new set of eyes, as if we're doing it for the first time. And so whether you've ever practiced yoga before or not, or maybe you have been practicing yoga for many, many decades, or somewhere in between, the practice today, we're going to do a very basic practice, and I'd like you to act as if you're doing this for the first time. So I welcome those of you who have never practiced before. This is a great one for you to start with. So we're going to be doing a beginner's mind practice, and we will start in a comfortable seat. And we'll start by just doing some breaths here. Inhaling in, feeling the stretch and the opening. So as you do this, if you've never sat before, right? This is your first time sitting in a yogic position. You're feeling your hips really anchored in. Your back is straight so that your knees and your back are at a 90-degree angle. Your arms come up overhead, but in a way that allows your shoulders to stay away from your ears. So we don't want to yank our shoulders up. We want to let that weight of our shoulders fall down towards the earth. And you can look up gently, exhaling your hands to heart center. And then we're going to come into a very simple twist. So you can stay seated for this twist. You can have your legs out in front of you. Either one is fine. I'm going to show it with my legs out in front of me. We'll take a nice inhale in, and we'll exhale towards the right. We'll let our left hand come to the outside of our right thigh and our right arm come behind us. And take a moment to feel this. Feel that your back and your right arm are perfectly aligned, 90 degrees to the floor. And on your inhale, you'll press down gently with your fingers and your sits bones into your mat or your surface that you're sitting on, and your head will lift up towards the ceiling a little. And as you exhale, you'll just go maybe a half inch deeper in your twist. We'll do that a few times. Inhaling in, exhaling to deepen the twist. And it doesn't matter how far you twist. It's about the sensations that you're feeling and training your body. It'll come over time. Every day will be a little bit different. We'll take our arms up on the inhale again. And we'll exhale this time, our right hand to the outside of our left thigh, our left hand behind us, creating a lift here. Inhaling in, exhaling, inhaling in, exhaling to go a little bit deeper. We'll do 2 more breaths here. Exhaling, coming back to center. And we'll take our knees up and swing your feet behind you. We'll come to tabletop for a moment. Inhaling, finding that stability. And then we'll curl our toes under and press ourselves into a downward dog. And since this is the first time you've ever done down dog,
Imagine that your hands are shoulder width apart. Your fingers are spread wide enough to give you stability without feeling a lot of strain in your hands and your fingers. Your weight is not on your wrists. It is somewhere around this L of your fingers. You can feel your fingertips and your knuckles on both hands supporting you. Your heels may or may not hit the floor. It really depends on how your hamstrings are right now. So feel free to have a little bit of a bend in your knee. Try it with a bend in your knee. If you'd like to extend, go ahead. You want your tailbone to be coming up towards the wall behind you. And as you breathe in, you feel the width and the strength in your shoulders. Just feeling that. If you want, you can bend one knee at a time. This is called walking your dog. Come to stillness. And then tiptoe your feet up to meet your hands and let yourself come into a forward fold. Put a generous bend in your knees. Okay, you've never done this before. You don't know what your body wants, what it's capable of, what it's comfortable doing. So bend your knees. Let your head fall forward. You can put your hands on your elbows. You can put your hands on the floor. You can put your hands on blocks. Having blocks for beginners and for practicing beginner's mind is really valuable. If it's comfortable for you, see what it feels like to straighten your legs a little bit more, to take a little of the bend out. Just notice. Maybe bring the knees back into a bend again and just play around with how it feels. Bring your attention to your big toes as well, because sometimes we may tend to let our feet roll open or towards the outer edges of our feet. We want full contact of all of our toes and all elements of our feet. And then bend your knees again and slowly, with your head and your chin towards your chest, walk yourself up to a stand. And pause here for a moment. This is Tadasana, mountain pose. One of the most fundamental of all yoga poses. And let's practice it as if it's brand new. So your feet will be hip width distance apart. And I like to lift my toes up a little here and then take a moment to let each toe come back down on to the surface beneath you. And maybe gently and very subtly rock back and forth a little bit between your toes and your heels. Maybe a little bit side to side, the inner and outer edges of your feet, and find that just right spot. A little bit of a bend in your knees so that your hips are over your ankles, your knees are comfortable and not locked out. Your shoulders are over your hips, shoulders down away from your ears. And just let your hands come towards your side, palms facing forward. Take a moment to close your eyes if it's comfortable for you here. Just feel into the sensation of the simplicity of the strength of Tadasana. Being a little bit playful. That's one of the benefits also of beginner's mind, is it lets you open up to be childlike again because you're learning something for the first time. You're not expected to be perfect at it. Children like to practice mountain pose because they like to be mountains. They've got wonderful imaginations. And so let yourself be a little playful and imaginative right now and just picture what mountain you are. Are you the red rocks of Sedona, towering in the sun? Are you the mighty Sierras with snow caps and miles and acres of trees surrounded by lakes? Maybe the Tetons, the Rockies, Appalachian, wherever you may be,
Kilimanjaro. Just feel it. And then we'll take a nice deep breath in. Exhaling our hands to heart center. And we're going to come into warrior pose. So we're going to start by placing our left foot forward, toes pointed towards the top of the mat. The right foot will come back, and you'll bend the left knee so that the left knee is over the left ankle, and your hips will be facing forward. And you'll feel the edge of your back foot connected in. So you've got that full support of the back foot, you've got the full strength of the front foot. The energy in your thighs is pulling in toward each other. So you get a little bit of lift in your torso. And then you'll lift your arms out into a T. And when you feel nice and strong and stable, you'll take your gaze and look out over your forward fingers. This is warrior two. So your hips are open, you're strong, and even though you're not moving, there's quite a bit of energy being exerted to stay in this position. So we'll come into gentle warrior, we'll straighten that front leg, coming up here, exhaling back down. We'll come to reverse warrior by flipping our palms up to the ceiling and then tilting back, letting that left arm come up, right arm come down to just rest. You don't want to sink in and lose your alignment, but let that back arm just rest. And then we'll come back through warrior two into side angle. So you'll bring your forearm to your thigh and your right arm extended. If that feels too much, you can keep your hand on your hip. But if it feels okay to let that arm come out overhead, then you can look up towards that hand if that feels okay and you're balanced. And then we'll come back up to stand here. And we're going to switch to do warrior two in the opposite direction. So you'll stay where you are in your mat, but you'll twist, rotate, I should say, your front foot will now be the opposite foot. So I've got my right foot here and my left leg back here. Come into that bend again, feeling the connection of the feet again, the lift, the pull in the thighs of the energy toward each other to lift your torso up, arms out to the side. When you're feeling strong and balanced and stable, you can take that full warrior, just with the gaze out over that front finger. Breathing in here. And straighten that front leg. Lifting up. Coming back through warrior two. Flipping the palms to come to reverse warrior on the opposite side. And then tilting back, lifting the gaze. Taking a moment to rethink the foot position, feeling your feet, feeling your thighs. They might be burning a little bit if you've got them actively engaged. And then exhaling back through warrior two into side angle. Right forearm on the right thigh, left arm out overhead if that feels okay. If you want a half bind, you can do that. But as beginners, we're going to stick with the basics today. And then we'll come back up, heel toe our feet together. And we'll come into a malasana squat. So your toes will be out towards the edges of your mat. And you'll let your knees come out to the side. And you'll let your tailbone sink down. If this is not comfortable for you, you can bring a block underneath your tailbone to support you. You want to have your elbows on the inside of your thighs so that your elbows can be pressing out and your thighs will be pressing in. as your palms come together. Inhaling and exhaling here. And then we'll come back down onto our mat. And we're going to practice butterfly pose. So for butterfly, we'll have the soles of our feet together. And again, to be a little bit playful and childish, just imagine those butterflies that might be flying around the summer garden, taking flight, flitting around from flower to flower, intermingling with the dragonflies and the birds. And just let yourself be that butterfly for a moment. And then you can hold on to your shins, your heels, your feet, whatever feels right to you. And slowly let yourself fold forward. We want to keep a straight back here. And stop when you feel a sensation in your lower back or in your thighs. Stop and notice it. And maybe go back to the beginning and do it again. Fold forward and notice the point where you feel a shift, something catches, something fires up, whatever it might be. And take a breath there, and then maybe go a little bit further. And again, go a little bit further. All the time paying attention that your shoulders are sinking down behind you, keeping a lot of length between your shoulders and your ears. And then slowly walking yourself back up, placing your feet on the floor in front of you. Slowly lower yourself down onto your back. And we're going to do a reclined pigeon or figure 4 pose. This is a really nice one for the hips. And again, we want to notice how it feels. So we're going to start by lifting our right leg up to the air. And let's point and flex our foot a few times. And just notice how that feels. Rotate your foot a few times clockwise and then counterclockwise. And then place that right ankle on the left knee. Place your right hand on your right thigh. And as if you're lengthening your spine here, just gently press into your thigh to create a little more length in your back. Breathing in and breathing out. Notice the placement of your sacrum and your tailbone on the mat. Notice the sensation underneath your left foot. Notice how your thigh feels with your palm pressing into it. And then experiment. Lift that left foot up off the mat. You can either keep your hands on your thighs or you can clasp your fingers behind your lifted leg. Your elbow may come to the inside of your right knee. And notice what feels different. For me, what feels different is that I can feel this more in my buttocks and a more opening in my hip than I did when my foot was down. You can also try lifting this left leg. When I do that, I don't feel that much different than I do when it's bent. So it's entirely a matter of preference and what you feel, what feels better. There's no point in adding something if it's not benefiting you. So just figure out what feels right to you. And then we'll go ahead and place that down. Place both feet back on the mat. And now we'll lift our left leg up.
and pointing and flexing it. Each side might feel a little bit different. So how does this side feel? Rotating clockwise and then counterclockwise. And then you'll bring your left ankle to your right knee, left palm on your left thigh, and you get gently pressing away, imagining that you're creating more space in all the vertebrae, lengthening, growing an inch or so. Inhaling and exhaling, and just noticing what you feel and where you're feeling it. Feeling the connection to the surface that you're laying on. And then if you feel like it, lift your right foot up and see what feels different. You can change to clasp your hands behind the back of your knee. For me, this is where I feel the biggest difference. That extra extension in my outer left hip is very noticeable to me. It feels good. You can, again, lengthen that top leg if that feels good to you. You may find it beneficial from an alignment perspective. And then go ahead and place that down. Place the other foot down next to it. And then go ahead and bring both feet up to the ceiling. And then bring your knees in and rock yourself forward and back a little bit and come up to a seat. And we're going to do Janu Sirsasana. So to do this, you'll bend your right leg. You'll place the sole of your right foot on the inside of your left thigh. Left leg outstretched, and the foot will be flexed. And then you'll turn your torso to face the outstretched leg and start to fold towards that leg. And when you feel any little change, stop and pause and notice it. Take a breath into it. And then if you'd like, you can go a little bit deeper and just notice how that sensation changes. The best way to practice beginner's mind is to be purposeful and slow. If you were in a laboratory doing a science experiment for the first time and had a whole bunch of different compounds in front of you, you would want to make sure you understood how you mixed them together. It mattered what order you did it, the amounts. Treat working with your body the same way, because it is the same. You've got a whole bunch of different pieces and parts that are all intertwined and doing things in a certain order at a certain pace, adding a certain amount of oxygen, all can change the outcome. And then go ahead and lift yourself back up, and we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Now you'll bring your left foot into your right thigh, right leg outstretched, foot flexed. Turn your torso to face the outstretched leg and come forward just a little bit, as if you're adding just a little bit of something to your test tube. Inhaling, adding some oxygen, and then maybe a little bit further. Inhaling, and each time just noticing what you're feeling, what is releasing, what tension might be melting away, where did you feel something that you didn't expect it. You don't have to name it as a good or bad feeling. It's just a feeling, it's a sensation.
And then gently lift yourself back up. We're going to end with one last pose here. So come back onto your back. We're going to come into tabletop. With tabletop, you want your feet hip distance apart. I like to lift my shoulders up a little and make sure I have enough length in my vertebrae and my spine. And then I press gently into my feet to lift up my torso. And then you tuck your shoulders in and clasp your hands underneath so that you're not resting on your neck. You're resting on your arms as they're underneath you, supporting you. And then bring your attention in to lift up a little bit higher. And feeling the connection, feeling your feet, bring your attention to your big toes. Inhaling. And then unclasp your hands, lift your heels up a little, and slowly roll down one vertebra at a time. You can let your left leg come straight, bring your right knee in. We're going to do a little bit of a twist with our right arm out and let your left hip come over to the left side. Your gaze can come out over your outstretched hand. And just discover what that feels like. This feels really good to me. Nice release of tension right here in my hip. Coming back up to center, switching so your left knee comes in, left arm comes out, guiding the left knee over to the right side. Your gaze can either be out to the left or up ahead. Play with each one and see what feels different. Or just notice if it feels different. You don't even need to name it. Sometimes the differences are quite subtle. So just noticing them so you have a little bit of cause and effect of knowing how your body feels in certain situations. And bringing your knees back up to center, rolling over onto your right side, pausing for a moment, and just maybe have a little nice wonder and amazement and awe at yourself for doing something new. Pressing yourself into a seat, coming up onto your knees here. Take a nice deep breath in, lifting up. Exhaling our hands to heart center. We'll do that again, inhaling up. Hands to heart center. Thanking you for joining me today for this beginning practice. I hope whether you are a seasoned practitioner or brand new at yoga, you've found it a little bit interesting and hopefully a little bit fun to try to do something with beginner's mind. Namaste.